All right, we're going to go ahead and get started with the Knowledge Education Series here. Again, this is Knowledge Education Series put on by P&L Technology. This session is titled the Cloud Right for Your Business. I want to welcome everybody to this event. The reason why we're doing these educational series is that there's always a lot happening out in the technology industry, and it can be pretty overwhelming to business owners and non-technical folks out there. So we hope these sessions can bring some clarity to some of the different technologies that are out in the industry, as well as some of the buzzwords that are being used around the media and just throughout the industry now. Again, the topic today we are covering is cloud services and how this session will work. This is a listen-only event. If you do have any questions, we do encourage you to please chat them in, and we are saving time at the end to address as many of these questions as we can. Also, following the session, we'll introduce some future topics that we hope will be you'll be interested in learning more about, as well as we will be sending out an email that will not only contain information about future topics, but as well as a short survey that we hope you'll take the time to fill out, as that will greatly assist us in making future sessions more informative. So anyway, we do hope you find this session valuable and hope it's helpful to your business. The presenter for this session is Drew Embury. Drew is the Executive Vice President and a partner in P&L Technology. He helped establish the company back in 2004 and has continued to assist in developing new technology strategies that can help local businesses. With that, I will hand things off to Drew.
Well, great. Thanks, Steve. I'm very happy to be here today and talking about this wonderful topic of cloud computing. So what we're going to cover today, we're going to define the cloud term. This is a confusing, heavily advertised term that companies like Microsoft and Google have really put an all-out ad blitz in place. And this has created a lot of questions and confusion in the business community about how they can leverage this technology. We're going to discuss some of the business applications of cloud technology, by dropping the hype and cutting right to the core of the business ROI. We're going to talk about everybody's favorite categories and potential cost savings associated with cloud technology. And we're going to discuss some of the decision factors for your business, questions you need to ask yourself when determining if cloud is right for you. We're also going to look at a couple of case studies of local businesses who have embraced the cloud and why they did that and what some of the results were. So let's start by talking, what is the cloud? When they say cloud, what do they mean? Well, at the core, cloud is a very generic term, which simply means taking and moving business data, such as documents, spreadsheets, or line of business applications that your business runs on, and moving that from on-site IT infrastructure to infrastructure provided by your cloud technology provider at a distant location. These resources can then be accessed over any internet connection by employees of your organization. You may actually already be using cloud technology and not even know it. We get several calls a month from customers who have seen or read articles about cloud technology and want to sit down and see how it makes sense for their business. And I get to tell them that they've already been using cloud technology, such as outsourced email or backup services, for several years. And then we get to sit down and have a conversation whether a further move to the cloud may make sense for their organization. Another distinction we'd like to make is between the public and private clouds. The public cloud typically refers to large companies such as Google, or Amazon, or Microsoft, who've created mass market solutions that they deliver mainly business to consumer, while the private cloud refers to companies such as P&L Technology that have developed niche cloud offerings that they deliver to certain segments of the business population. So what are some of the business applications of cloud technology, and why is there so much buzz around this term? Well, at its core, the cloud technology represents potential productivity gains that businesses can deliver to their employees by removing complexity from the business owner associated with running an IT infrastructure. So the cloud can do such things such as easing the number of servers necessary to provide business resources to your employees, improve things like backup and disaster recovery processes, as well as improve application delivery and upgrades. So let's look at those individual items now. In the case of servers, a move to the cloud can either reduce or potentially even eliminate the number of servers necessary to deliver IT support to your users. It can remove hassles with ensuring there's enough capacity in your server and network system, and also reduce or eliminate upgrade cycles where every 3 to 4 years you're basically replacing all of the stuff you bought in the prior upgrade cycle. In the case of backups, by outsourcing to a cloud provider, you potentially never have to worry about backups again. Your cloud provider takes care of this for you, makes sure the backups are working, makes sure they're going to be there when you need it, and remove the hassles of swapping tapes and things like that. In the case of disaster recovery, many businesses don't have a disaster recovery plan currently, and a move to the cloud can instantly remove the need to worry about what happens in the case of a server crash, or even a more serious scenario such as a fire, flood, or tornado destroying your office building. This has especially been in the minds of people in the Lincoln and Omaha area after the Lincoln Public School fire, where their data center and administration building was completely destroyed, and the Joplin, Missouri tornadoes. And we've taken a number of calls from people that want to discuss that after seeing that in the news. Application delivery and upgrades can also be vastly simplified by a move to the cloud. When new applications come out, they're installed once in the cloud system, and all of the employees of your organization automatically get access to them. This eliminates the need for IT people to come on site, go around to each computer, install, configure, and troubleshoot these applications. So there's a couple different strategies businesses can take to embrace the cloud technology. The two strategies that we see used most often is what we call a hybrid strategy and a fully cloud-based strategy. In a hybrid strategy, some resources remain local on site, so some applications, some data, some server and network equipment, and then these are supplemented by remote cloud services. A hybrid strategy is a less radical, more familiar environment for your employees. Some of the low-hanging fruit that we see in our business is email and backups. So any businesses that are currently doing email or backups may want to ask questions about whether a move to the cloud for these services may make more sense for them. In the case of email, by moving to a cloud, this is one less server to buy and maintain, and less licenses to buy, where you don't have to buy Microsoft Exchange licenses and then upgrade those every 3 to 4 years. The cloud provider will handle this all for you. In the case of backups, by outsourcing to the cloud, it removes this hassle from somebody in your organization having to make sure this works. The backups are then always off-site and are more reliable. Another strategy we see is customers embracing is a fully cloud-based strategy. In this strategy, little to no IT infrastructure exists at your business location at all. Only lower-cost computers used as an access terminal, an internet connection, and printers remain on site. Everything else is located in your cloud provider. This type of scenario requires more in-depth changes, assessment, and planning to be successful, and we'll look at this a little bit more in our upcoming case study. Probably the second most popular question we hear in our business after, Drew, tell me what this cloud stuff is what potential cost savings we can achieve by moving to the cloud. And there are some potential cost savings associated with this. One would be hardware. By a move to the cloud, fewer servers can be purchased. The servers you do purchase can be less powerful, and you may have to purchase these less frequently because you're not quite relying on them to the same extent you were when everything was on site. In the case of software, instead of buying software and putting a large capital outlay out up front, software can often be rented. For example, a company we worked with recently that has embraced the cloud needed to update their Microsoft Office licensing as they were on a very old version. They had 10 users, and instead of paying around $3,500 in one lump sum to upgrade to Microsoft Office 2010, they instead moved to a cloud-based service and pay on a monthly basis of less than $20 per user per month. And this made sense for this organization because they were interested in always keeping up with the latest version. So under this scenario, they save the large cash outlay, always get access to the new version, and don't have to worry about rebuying the licensing every few years as they need to upgrade. Companies we work with that work in the cloud often spend less money with capital expenditures on hardware and software, but they do spend a little bit more on operational expenses because they are outsourcing all of those functions to their cloud provider. So what are some decision factors for your businesses or questions you need to ask yourself as you're judging whether a move to the cloud makes sense? The first thing we ask is your organization open to some change? And this is especially true for a fully cloud-based model. A move to the cloud will involve some transition and retraining for your staff, and support from upper management is critical to ensure that set in their ways employees embrace the necessary changes. The second thing we look at is the current IT infrastructure. This needs to be assessed before a decision is made on how to embrace cloud technology. Items we typically look at are the size of the company, how mobile is the workforce, and most importantly, what applications are needed by the business to keep and gain a competitive advantage over the competitions. Do these applications that are needed already exist in the business today? And if so, can these applications be easily moved to the cloud? For some businesses, a hybrid model is more appropriate, where a lot of the IT infrastructure can be kept on site and certain ancillary services can be moved to the cloud, such as Microsoft Exchange email and backups to the cloud. Another item to ask is, do you have a cloud provider you can trust? The media has been covering a lot of cloud outages lately from certain large providers, such as Sony's PlayStation Network, which was down for about 2 weeks, Amazon's cloud services, which were down for 3 days, to Microsoft's email service, which was down for an entire day, and even Google's gotten in on it by losing a large number of email messages for a certain percentage of its users. So what we found is your cloud provider must be responsive to your needs and available when there are issues. There can be some financial impact by a move to the cloud. And again, this is one of the first questions we're often asked by a business owner. And what we found is the cloud does not always initially lower costs. Many successful firms view IT as strategic, spend a certain percentage of their revenue on IT, and will continue to do so, whether they deliver the services to their users over a traditional IT infrastructure or over a cloud infrastructure. What we have found, however, is the cloud can make it easier to quickly bring new technologies into the business, react to competitive changes quickly, and reduce operational hassles associated with running IT infrastructure on site. A lot of our customers that have embraced the cloud tell us they're reacting to the future. They want to get ahead of the curve by starting to embrace cloud technology today, so it'll pay dividends in the future as this technology continues to be refined and costs continue to come down. So let's take a look at a couple of actual case studies of local businesses that have embraced the cloud. The first business we're going to study today is Albers Communication Group. They are an Omaha-based public relation firm with 10 employees. What makes Albers a really unique company is they're a virtual company, as they don't have a physical office or a physical headquarters. All the employees work from their homes or wherever they're at, or at a coffee shop or another customer's location. Albers is an all-hours company, and it's not uncommon to find their employees working after midnight. Albers has embraced the full cloud model we covered earlier, and what this means is the company's server, all their business data, and all their applications are located in P&L Technology's private cloud. So Albers did not buy a server. They didn't buy any Microsoft licensing. Instead, they pay monthly to always get the latest version. All the employees use their own PCs. The company did not buy any PCs. And these employees use their PCs to connect to the private cloud server. They use Microsoft Word and Excel to do documents and spreadsheets. They use QuickBooks to do their accounting. And they use a third-party public relations software that's specific to their industry. And of course, the employees also use a cloud-based Microsoft Exchange email system, including Microsoft Outlook, for all their email communication needs. So the advantages to Albers is by going with the solution is they don't have to worry about backup or disaster recovery. They have no IT infrastructure that could be destroyed. So things like fire, flood, tornado, theft, or server crash, Albers doesn't have to worry about any of these items by their move to the cloud. And their technology is completely backed up by support. There's a local number to call with a live answer if there are any issues, so they can get resolved quickly. So let's take a look at another local company that's embraced the cloud. The second company we're going to study is a local full-service marketing firm. They are headquartered in Omaha, Nebraska, with a few employees in Lincoln. They have 50 full-time employees that mainly work in their main office building. This company has embraced the hybrid cloud model we covered earlier. The company used to have all of their IT resources on site, but they needed a disaster recovery plan to be able to bring on 2 Fortune 500 companies they were trying to get contracts with. These companies required, as part of the deal, a complete disaster recovery plan, so they knew they could be serviced in the event of a disaster. The company was also increasingly uncomfortable with how much a few hours of downtime would affect them in the event of a server crash with 50 highly paid professionals sitting idle. So this particular company chose to outsource their email and backup to P&L Technology's private cloud. This allowed us to eliminate 2 on-site servers and the associated expenses with procuring and operating these servers. In the case of this company, the email outsourcing, they had an existing legacy email system in-house, but it could not support smartphones for mobile email. So they took advantage of the cloud-based Microsoft Exchange system and a cloud-based anti-spam system to ensure their email was always available, even in the event of a disaster. In the case of backups, the company purchased a shadow server which mirrored their on-site IT infrastructure to the cloud and is ready to take over in the event of a server crash. The server sends all of its data off-site to the cloud in case of a building disaster. So by outsourcing these services to the cloud in a hybrid model, this allowed this company to quickly meet the requirements of these Fortune 500 companies and win their business. The company was also in a much better position to quickly recover should a major server outage occur, or even worse, a physical disaster occurred at their building. That brings us to the completion of these 2 case studies. I think we've got some time for questions and answers. Steve?
All right, thanks, Drew. We will go ahead and open it up to some questions now. We do have some that were chatted in during. For anybody who did join on a little bit later in the presentation, if you do have any questions, again, you can use the chat function. Go ahead and chat in those questions, and we'll take those as we get them. First question I have, Drew, is I have an application software I rely heavily on, but have been told I may not be a candidate for the cloud. What exactly does this mean?
Sure. That's an excellent question. And that's really the first place we start when we're evaluating if a company is right for the cloud, is because we realize businesses, they don't run computers for the sake of running computers. They run computers for the sake of running the applications that really power their business. There are a few applications that do make it difficult for a move to the cloud. So what we do is we evaluate these applications to see if they will work in the cloud, and then make a determination on whether a fully cloud model or potentially a hybrid cloud model might make the most sense for this business. We probably run into 85 or 90% of the applications we evaluate are fully ready to be deployed in the cloud, and there are a certain percentage of especially older applications that don't work well in the cloud, and in those cases we typically do recommend a hybrid model where those applications continue to run on site, and then the companies can draw in resources for some of those other services, such as email and backup and monitoring and services along those lines.
Okay. Next question we have is, how different is using a cloud technology versus just sitting down and booting up my computer like I do now?
Sure. No, that's a great question. It's always very important on how the look and feel is for the end user. It is a little bit different. There's really, especially in a fully cloud model, there's nothing installed on your PC. None of the applications, none of the data, none of the intelligence lives on the local PC. That all lives up in the cloud. So what the users will do is they'll use typically a standard internet browser, and they will log on to the cloud service, and then they'll be presented with the list of applications they need to do their job. Whether that's Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel for documents and spreadsheets, or whatever third-party line of business applications that particular organization uses. Which obviously every organization has its application it relies on. For example, the trucking company would use the dispatch software to dispatch their trucks, and the accounting firm would use the tax software to calculate returns for their end users. So it is a little bit different for users at first when they versus just booting up their PC and having everything right on their desktop. But after a little bit of retraining, we find that most people are very comfortable moving to the new model.
All right. Next question we have is getting a little more on the specific side, but it's, can you share an approximate monthly cost associated with cloud computing? This question, I have approximately 10 workstations.
Sure. I assume that he's asking more about under a fully cloud-based model versus just a hybrid model where some services will be delivered, and that's the pricing can vary, rapidly. I mean, it could be anywhere from $500 to $1,500 a month, depending on the amount of resources needed. Under most cloud arrangements, an assessment needs to be done with how much computing power would be needed to run those users. So, in the case of like Albert's Communications Group that we case studied earlier, they just needed Microsoft Outlook, Microsoft Word and Excel, and one third-party application. So they were coming in on the lower end of that scale that I mentioned. A company that has 10 or 15 applications, your cloud provider is going to need to throw a lot more resources on their cloud servers at your particular organization to support all of those additional applications. So then the cost would come in, on the higher end of that range. So it really is specific to the individual business, depending on what services they need, how many users they have, and how many applications they're trying to deploy in the cloud.
Okay. Another question, kind of on the I guess a transition kind of question. If I move to the cloud and find it's not a fit for my business, how hard is it to get out?
Right. Yeah, that's a great question, and that's something you certainly should ask. And that kind of goes back to the question we covered, or not the question, but one of the points on our slide where you really need to make sure you have a cloud provider you can trust, because all of your data then is really sitting in their hands, and they're a custodian of that data for you. So you'll want to look at contractual things like, if it's not delivered, am I locked into this agreement, or do I have an out clause to get out? The way we structure our contracts for our customers is there's always an out clause that, if it's not performing, then you can get out of the agreement and we turn your data over. We also have in some of our agreements that if for whatever reason a company that's went with a fully cloud-based model and decides that, maybe due to changes in their business or just due to the growth in their business, they need to bring it back more in-house. And we have actually the ability to fairly easily take a cloud-based server and convert it to a physical server like you would expect in a traditional IT environment that would sit in a closet in your business and then run those applications. So I think the takeaway is to have those conversations up front with your cloud-based provider on what to expect and should those scenarios come up.
Okay. Another question is, how do I know my internet can handle cloud services?
Another great question. And this is very important to look at up front as well. Because all of the resources are now located off-site from your business and you're using the internet connection to access these resources, it's very, very important that that connection be stable. If the connection's down, you're down. So the things that we look at when we go into a business is we talk about the stability of that circuit. Has it been stable? And if not, sometimes we need to get the internet service provider involved in order to make it stable or potentially make a change if they're unable to make it work. We look at how many users are, as far as sizing the circuit properly, we look at how many users are going to be using it, how heavily they're going to be using it, and then what tier of service you have from that internet service provider. So sometimes it's necessary to purchase a higher tier of service if you don't have enough bandwidth available today to do that, but that can be done cost effectively. The other thing we have had a couple of customers do that really have high uptime needs and just don't want to take a risk is we've had them purchase 2 circuits. We have a couple of customers that have not only a line from Cox Communications in Omaha or Time Warner Communications in Lincoln, but then they've also purchased a DSL circuit from the phone company, like for Windstream in Lincoln or Quest Communications here in Omaha. And that can be configured then to automatically fail over if one of them goes down where the users really don't even notice that it's gone down. Okay.
This question, I have a mix of both Mac and PC users. Can they all utilize the cloud services?
Yeah, absolutely. There's really not a major difference between the two. That being said, the type of access device you have becomes a lot less important when you're dealing with cloud because you're running everything remotely. So the PC, be it Mac or PC, remains more of a matter of preference. And typically we recommend just spending a little bit less because all the power is being done remotely. Another thing we've seen people do even lately is buy iPads with the Verizon 3G support on them, and they can be sitting, driving down the road as a passenger in a car, or sitting in a coffee shop and pulling up their desktop in the cloud, just like they were sitting in the office. And we've had some people get some real productivity gains on those types of technologies.
All right. Well, thanks, Drew. It looks like we've taken care of pretty much every question that's out there. So probably cut it short at this point. But if there are any additional questions that do come up with any of our listeners, please go ahead and feel free to either call or email Drew or myself. We'll also be sending a recording of this event to each one of you. We hope that you can review it, you pass it along to anybody who you know of or think of that might be able to benefit from the material. But we do hope you enjoyed this session and look forward to you joining us for future events. The next webinar will take the cloud conversation one step further and discuss virtual servers. The tagline here is the virtual servers simplify and maximize your IT. So hopefully that will be another topic of interest for you. It'll take place August 9th at 10 a.m. as well as August 10th at noon. So again, we hope you'll be joining us. But we do appreciate your time today and hope you enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you very much.